you think you do not know how to flirt. That is genuinely the funniest thing you have ever believed about yourself, and you have cataloged some truly spectacular lies in that meticulous mental archive of yours. You have filed this particular falsehood under social deficits or awkward around romance or whatever tidy label you use to explain why you sometimes feel like a librarian in a nightclub, carefully shelving everyone else's chaos while the music pounds and the lights flash and nobody seems to notice that you are cataloging the entire room with a precision that borders on the supernatural. But they have noticed. Oh, they have noticed. And right now, at this exact moment, while you are reading this with your shoulders slightly hunched and your face arranged in that expression you wear when you are pretending to be casually interested in something, eyebrows neutral, mouth relaxed, the very picture of someone who is definitely not emotionally invested. There is someone out there who is coming apart at the molecular level because of you. Not because you tried, not because you performed some seductive ritual you learned from a magazine or a friend or a late night internet spiral. They are coming apart because you exist in your particular, exacting, devastatingly specific way. Because you moved through a room last Tuesday or last month or 6 hours ago and you adjusted your glasses, or you tucked your hair behind your ear, or you simply looked at them with that gaze that sees everything and edits nothing, and something inside them short-circuited so completely that they are still standing in the ashes, trying to remember how to breathe normally. They know. They know with the kind of knowing that lives in the gut, not the head. They know that one kiss from you would not be a kiss, it would be a demolition. It would be the wrecking ball that swings through the carefully constructed cathedral of their self-control and leaves nothing standing but dust and the embarrassing, exposed truth that they have wanted you with a ferocity that makes every other desire in their life look like a hobby. One kiss from you would ruin them, and they know it. And the knowing is the only thing keeping them from crossing the room right now and begging you to prove it. Let me tell you exactly what they mean by ruin. They do not mean destruction in the sad, violent sense. They mean the kind of ruin that happens when a person who has spent their entire adult life building walls suddenly discovers that the walls were never load-bearing, that the fortress they believed protected them was actually a prison, and the key has been walking around in human form, wearing sensible shoes, and an expression that says, "I am not entirely sure why you are looking at me like that." They mean the kind of ruin that happens when a single point of contact, your mouth on theirs, your hand on the back of their neck, the specific weight of your body leaning into their space rearranges their entire understanding of what intimacy is supposed to feel like. Because they have had intimacy before. They have had sex before. They have had relationships that checked all the boxes and followed all the scripts, but they have never had you. And their body, their treacherous, traitorous, desperately honest body, knows that the difference between what they have had and what you would give them is the difference between a photograph and a wildfire. They are terrified of you. This is the part you do not see. You think they are distant. You think they are composed. You think they are the one in control of this little dance, if you even allow yourself to call it a dance, because you have probably filed it under ambiguous social interaction and assigned it a low priority flag in your mental inbox. But they are not composed. They are performing composure with the desperate rigor of an actor who has forgotten their lines but knows the show must not stop. Every time they are in a room with you, they are engaged in a full-scale military operation against their own nervous system. They are commanding their pupils not to dilate. They are ordering their pulse to remain within acceptable parameters. They are threatening their own hands with severe disciplinary action if they so much as twitch in your direction, and they are losing. They are losing so comprehensively that if you looked closely, and you do look closely, you cannot help it. You are Virgo. You observe the way a forensic scientist observes a crime scene. You would see the cracks, the way they swallow before speaking to you, the way their voice drops half an octave, as if their body is trying to disguise itself in a lower register to avoid detection. The way they find reasons to touch objects you have touched, not in some creepy, obsessive manner, but with the unconscious reverence of a person trying to establish a relay, a current, a physical connection to you through the shared medium of a coffee cup or a pen or the edge of a coat sleeve. They have imagined the kiss. I need you to understand the scale of this. They have not simply wondered what it would be like. They have built a full-scale simulation. They have run the scenario so many times that their mind has developed alternate endings, director's cuts, extended editions. They have imagined it in the rain because, of course, everyone imagines the rain eventually, but they have also imagined it in the least romantic places possible because their obsession is democratic. They have imagined it in the fluorescent buzz of a parking garage. They have imagined it in the awkward silence of an elevator that got stuck between floors. They have imagined it when you were angry, because your anger, your precise, articulate, devastatingly fair anger does something to them that they are too ashamed to name, even in the privacy of their own mind. They have imagined kissing you to shut you up, to start you up, to prove something, to surrender everything. And in every single version, the result is the same: ruin. Absolute, glorious, irreversible ruin. The kind where they forget their own name. The kind where the life they had planned before they met you suddenly looks like a coloring book they have outgrown. The kind where they wake up the next morning or the next week or the next year and realize that nothing fits anymore because their body has been recalibrated to your frequency and no other station comes in clearly. And here is the truly unfair part. You are not trying. You are not wearing the right clothes or saying the right things or deploying some strategic campaign of seduction. You are, in fact, almost certainly undermining your own appeal with the same ruthless efficiency you apply to everything else. You are pointing out your own flaws before anyone else can. You are making self-deprecating jokes that land with surgical precision. You are deflecting compliments with the speed of a ninja, turning every "you look nice tonight" into a dissertation on why the lighting is flattering and the garment was on sale, and really it is nothing special. You think you are being humble, you think you are managing expectations, you think you are protecting yourself from the embarrassment of being seen as desirable by making sure nobody expects too much. But what you are actually doing is pouring gasoline on a fire they are already struggling to contain, because your deflection is not diminishing you in their eyes, it is revealing you. Every time you dismiss your own power, they see the person underneath the performance. They see the vulnerability that you try to organize away. They see the child who learned that being too much was dangerous, that being too bright drew the wrong kind of attention, that it was safer to be useful than to be wanted, and they want that child. They want that child with a ferocity that frightens them. They want to gather up every piece of your self-doubt and replace it with the certainty of their own devotion. They want to look you in the eye and say, "Stop. You are not a discount. You are not a convenience. You are the standard by which I will measure every other person for the rest of my life." But they do not say it because they know that if they open their mouth, if they let even one syllable of that truth escape, the dam will burst. And the dam is the only thing keeping them from being completely, irreparably ruined by you. So they stay in the safety of the almost. The almost is a terrible country. It is populated by people who have chosen the agony of proximity over the risk of surrender. And your person, your ruin, your would-be demolitionist, your secret admirer who is so far past admiration they have entered the territory of religious conversion, is currently a citizen of that country, holding a passport they never asked for, staring across the border at you every single day. They have memorized the map of your almosts. The time you stood close enough for them to smell your shampoo, something clean, something herbal, something that made them want to bury their face in your neck and stay there until the world ended. The time your hand brushed theirs while reaching for the same object and the contact lasted exactly 1 second longer than necessary, or maybe exactly 1 second shorter than necessary, or maybe the exact right amount of time to leave them dizzy for hours. The time you laughed at something they said, really laughed. Not the polite social laugh, but the unguarded, slightly too loud, completely unself-conscious laugh that revealed the person you are when you are not monitoring yourself, and the sound of it hit them like a drug they did not know they were addicted to until that exact moment. They have cataloged these almost the way you catalog your own anxieties, with precision, with devotion, with a kind of desperate scholarship. And each almost has convinced them further that the real thing would be too much, that one kiss would not be a kiss, it would be a covenant. It would be the moment they signed over the deed to their own heart and accepted that they would never want anyone else again, not because you would demand that, not because you are possessive or controlling or any of the other labels people throw at intense connections, but because your kiss would be so precisely, exactly, devastatingly tailored to the architecture of their need that no generic substitute would ever satisfy them again. You would ruin the market. You would crash the economy of their desire. And they would spend the rest of their days comparing every other potential lover to the ghost of a kiss that only happened once in a moment they can no longer even fully remember because the memory itself has become too holy to touch. They have tried to move on. Let me be clear about this. They have made genuine, good faith efforts to redirect this energy. They have gone on dates. They have swiped. They have accepted setups from well-meaning friends. And in every instance, they have found themselves performing a comparison they did not authorize. The date would be saying something perfectly pleasant, something charming and appropriate, and your person would be nodding and smiling while their inner monologue screamed, but they do not notice the way the light hits the rim of the glass. But they do not remember that I prefer my coffee with exactly this much milk. But they do not see the pattern in the conversation the way Virgo would see it. But they are not her. But they are not him. But they are not Virgo. And the date would end, and your person would go home, and they would stand in front of their mirror and look at their own face with a mixture of pity and resignation because they know they have been ruined already. Not by a kiss, by a presence, by the simple, brutal fact of your existence in the world at the same time as theirs. Because here is what you do not understand about your own power, and it is the thing that makes you most dangerous to their equilibrium. You see people, not the version they present, not the curated highlight reel. You see the glitch in the matrix. You see the way their smile does not quite reach their left eye when they are lying. You see the way they organize their desk to compensate for internal chaos. You see the way they pause exactly half a beat too long before answering a question that touches their real feelings. You see it all, and you do not always comment on it, but your seeing is a form of touching. It is a form of intimacy that bypasses the physical entirely and goes straight to the bone. And they have never been seen this way before. They have been looked at, admired, desired, even loved. But they have never been seen with the granular, unflinching, completely non-judgmental precision that you bring to the table. When you look at them, they feel simultaneously exposed and safe, which is a combination that should not exist but does, and the existence of it has ruined them for every other kind of attention. They do not want to be admired anymore. They want to be witnessed. They want to be the subject of your relentless, beautiful, terrifying observation. And they know that if they let you kiss them, if they let that final barrier fall, the observation would become possession. Not in the toxic sense, in the sacred sense. You would know them. You would know the topography of their mouth, the rhythm of their breath, the specific sound they make when they are no longer guarding anything. And once you knew that, they would be yours willingly, gratefully, ruined beyond repair. They are fighting it. Do not mistake their distance for disinterest. Every time they step back, every time they cancel a plan, every time they respond to your message with a delay that feels calculated, they are not playing games. They are trying to survive. They are trying to preserve the version of themselves that does not need you. The version that was functional before you walked into the room and rewired their entire system. They are trying to remember what it felt like to be a person who could get through a day without thinking about your hands. And they are failing. The failure is written in their body, in the way they cannot eat before seeing you because their stomach has become a fist, in the way they rehearse casual conversation topics in the shower like an actor preparing for an audition. They are certain they will fail. In the way they have started avoiding certain songs, certain streets, certain times of day, because those sensory triggers are now wired directly to the memory of you, and the memory of you is too potent to handle without preparation. And the cruelest part? You feel it too. You do not want to admit it. You have spent considerable energy constructing a narrative where you are immune to this kind of chemistry, where your logic is a vaccine against the fever of attraction. You have told yourself that you are too practical, too grounded, too aware of the statistical improbability of soulmates to fall into the trap of romantic obsession, but your body has been keeping its own records. You notice them with a granularity that you do not apply to other people. You remember what they wore on a Tuesday 3 weeks ago. You notice when they changed their cologne, their haircut, the cadence of their speech. You have caught yourself adjusting your posture when they enter a room, not to impress them, but to prepare yourself for the impact of their attention. You have imagined the kiss too. Maybe not with the same cinematic detail they have devoted to the fantasy, but with a specificity that disturbs you. The exact texture of their lower lip, the temperature of their skin, the way your breathing would change, the way your hands would need to touch something solid to anchor yourself in the reality of the moment. You have imagined it, and you have shut the imagination down because you are afraid, not of them, of yourself, of what you would become if you allowed yourself to want someone this completely. Because, with the same gut level certainty that they know that one kiss would not be enough, that one kiss would open a door you have kept locked for good reason. And behind that door is not a tidy romance with scheduled date nights and reasonable progression. Behind that door is a love that consumes, a love that reorganizes priorities, a love that demands you stop being the person who manages everything and start being the person who is simply terrifyingly present. You are afraid that you would ruin them too, because you would. You would not mean to. You would try to be careful. You would try to modulate your intensity, to dose it out in manageable increments, to be the reasonable partner you believe you should be. But your carefulness is a thin veneer over a depth that does not know how to be shallow. When you love with the same precision you bring to everything else. You notice, you remember, you adjust. You anticipate. You become the person who knows exactly how they take their tea and exactly what they are not saying when they say they are fine. You become indispensable, and indispensable is a form of ruin. It is the kind of ruin where a person wakes up one morning and realizes they cannot remember how to function without your particular brand of attention. They cannot remember how to soothe themselves because your way of soothing them was so exactly right that their own methods feel like cheap knockoffs. They cannot remember how to make a decision without wanting your input, not because they are weak, but because your input is so consistently devastatingly accurate that ignoring it feels like self-sabotage. You would ruin them by loving them better than anyone else ever has. And the worst part, the part that keeps you up at night, is that you know you are capable of it. You know the arsenal you possess. You know that your tenderness is a weapon of mass destruction, disguised as a first aid kit. So you hold back. You bite your lip. You make the joke instead of the confession. You organize the group outing instead of the private dinner. You keep the conversation in the shallow end because you are both afraid of what happens when you swim into the deep, and the tension builds, and the almosts accumulate, and the space between you becomes so charged with unspoken voltage that other people are starting to notice. The colleague who watches you both across the conference table with a knowing smirk. The friend who has stopped asking if there is something going on because the answer is so obvious it has become boring. The bartender who watches you lean toward each other and then pull back and then lean in again. And who knows, with the wisdom of someone who has witnessed 1,000 almosts, that this particular pair is one drink away from a story that will last for years. The moment is coming. You can feel it gathering like weather. It is not a question of if. It is a question of which version of ruin you are willing to accept, because there are two versions on offer. The first is the ruin of surrender. The kiss happens, the walls fall. The two of you stumble into the territory of real, unguarded, completely unmanageable intimacy, and everything else in your lives rearranges itself to make room for the magnitude of what you have started. Careers shift, friendships recalibrate, sleep schedules dissolve. The life you had before becomes a photograph you look at with fond detachment because the life you are living now is so much more vivid, so much more terrifying, so much more real. That is the first ruin. It is beautiful. It is messy. It is the kind of demolition that clears the ground for something that could not have been built on the old foundation. The second ruin is the ruin of silence. The kiss never happens. The tension is buried under years of polite distance. You both find other people, or you do not. But either way, you carry the ghost of what could have been like a stone in your pocket. You age. You become excellent at your jobs, admirable in your communities, respected in your circles. And every so often, at a party or a funeral or a random Tuesday, you catch each other's eye across a room, and the voltage is still there, undimmed by time, because electricity does not decay, it only waits for a conductor. And you will wonder, you will spend the rest of your life wondering what would have happened if one of you had been brave enough to close the distance, if one of you had been willing to be ruined. And that wondering is its own form of destruction. It is the slow erosion of the heart by the steady drip of what if. It is the kind of ruin that does not make a sound, but hollows you out from the inside until one day you realize that you have become a very impressive, very functional, very lonely shell of the person who once stood 3 feet away from the love of their life and chose safety instead. You are at the threshold, right now, tonight. The next time you see them, the next time your eyes meet and hold for 1 second longer than social convention allows, you are going to have to choose. And I am not going to tell you which choice is right, because I do not know the architecture of your specific life, the obligations you carry, the fears that are genuinely protective rather than merely paranoid. But I am going to tell you this. The fact that one kiss from you would ruin them is not a warning. It is a promise. It is the universe telling you that you possess the exact kind of power that most people spend their lives pretending they do not want. You are not too much. You are not too intense. You are not too complicated. You are exactly the right amount of everything to destroy the illusion that love should be small, manageable, and convenient. And there is someone in your orbit who is begging in the silent language of their body for you to exercise that power. They are not afraid of the ruin. They are afraid of the waiting. They are afraid that you will never know what you do to them. They are afraid that you will file yourself under not that kind of person and better to be safe and probably just imagining it until the window closes and the story ends with both of you wondering they want the ruin. They want it with a hunger that has kept them awake and distracted and functionally obsessed. They want to stand in the wreckage of their own composure and look at you and say, yes, this, you, finally. And they want you to meet them there. Not with hesitation, not with apology, not with a Virgo tendency to explain and qualify and contextualize the moment until it dies of overanalysis. They want you to kiss them the way you do everything else, with full attention, with complete presence, with the devastating precision of someone who has finally decided to stop holding back. So stop biting your lip. It is not working anyway. They have noticed. They have cataloged the gesture in the same obsessive library where they store every other detail of you. They know what it means. They know you are nervous. They know you are aware. They know that somewhere underneath your sensible exterior, underneath your careful plans and your color-coded calendars and your insistence that you are not the romantic type, there is a person who is just as capable of ruin as they are. And they are waiting for that person to show up. Let her show up. Let him show up. Let the version of you that does not apologize for taking up space, that does not minimize her own magnetism, that does not pretend to be smaller than she is just because bigness frightens people. Let that version step forward. Let her look them in the eye. Let her hold the gaze 2 seconds longer than necessary. Let her smile, not the polite smile, but the real one, the one that says, I know exactly what I do to you, and I am done pretending I don't. Let her close the distance. Let her ruin them. Let her ruin herself in the process, because the ruin of real connection is just another word for transformation, and you have been waiting to be transformed for longer than you will admit. The kiss is not the end. It is the beginning of the demolition. And on the other side of the rubble, if you are both brave enough to keep digging, you will find the foundation for something that does not need walls, something open, something exposed to the weather, something real. They are ready to be ruined. The only question left is whether you are ready to be the ruin. Smile, they are watching, and they have never wanted anything more.